Hello there, and welcome to History to Fall Asleep. Tonight, we are stepping into a world of frost and fire, great ash trees, distant halls, stormy seas, ravens, wolves, and stories told beside long-vanished hearths. We are exploring Norse mythology. These are the myths associated with the Old Norse-speaking peoples of Scandinavia and the wider Viking Age world. They gave shape to gods such as Odin, Thor, Freyja, Loki, and many others. They told of giants and dwarfs, of the world tree Yggdrasil, of a serpent beneath the sea, and of a future when even the gods would face change. But Norse mythology is not a single book written by one person at one time. Much of what survives was written down in medieval Iceland, after Christianity had already become established. The stories had also lived for generations in spoken poetry, performance, memory, and local custom. So, as we travel through them tonight, we will do so gently. We will enjoy the old tales while remembering that they reached us through many voices, and that some details remain uncertain. There is no need to hold on to every name. Let the stories come and go like waves beneath a northern sky. Imagine a quiet hall lit by one low lamp. Imagine snow resting on a wooden roof. Imagine a raven crossing a pale moon, carrying news from a place you do not need to reach. If these slow history journeys help you rest, you are welcome to subscribe to History to Fall Asleep. But for now, let your shoulders soften, let your breathing slow. Let the day fall farther behind you, and let us begin our gentle walk through the Old Norse myths. Fact 1. Much of Norse mythology survives in medieval writing, rather than Viking Age books. The best-known stories of Norse mythology were written down in medieval Iceland, long after many Scandinavians had become Christian. That does not mean the stories were invented in the Middle Ages. It means that the surviving written versions passed through the hands and minds of later authors and scribes. Before that, myths were preserved through oral poetry, performance, memory, ritual, and conversation. This makes Norse mythology fascinating, but it also asks us to be careful. We are hearing an old tradition through a medieval echo. The stories are precious, yet they are not a complete recording of every belief held across Scandinavia. Let that image settle now, like snow resting softly on the beam of an old wooden hall. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 2. The Poetic Edda is one of the main collections of Norse mythic poetry. The Poetic Edda is a modern name for a group of Old Norse poems preserved chiefly in an Icelandic manuscript called the Codex Regius. Some poems tell of gods, creation, fate, and Ragnarök. Others tell of heroes. The poems were written down in the 13th century, but many scholars believe some of their material is older. Their language can be brief, dramatic, and difficult, full of names and images that assumed an audience already knew the tradition. For a sleepy listener, it is enough to imagine them as old voices, speaking across a long white winter night, preserving fragments of a world that was already becoming distant. Picture the northern sky growing darker and calmer while the story moves on at its own patient pace. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos. A single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 3. Snorri Sturluson's Prose Edda is another essential source. Snorri Sturluson, an Icelandic writer and political figure of the 13th century, compiled what is usually called the Prose Edda. It includes retellings of myths and explanations of poetic language. Snorri wanted to help readers understand older skaldic poetry, which often used complex references to gods and myths. Because of this purpose, his book preserves many stories that might otherwise be lost. At the same time, Snorri lived in a Christian society and wrote with his own literary aims. His work is invaluable, but it is not a window without glass. It is a carefully shaped medieval account of a much older mythic inheritance. Take an easy breath and let the name drift away, leaving only a quiet road beneath the stars. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 4. Old Norse myths once lived mostly in spoken form. Before manuscripts preserved the stories, people could hear myths in songs, poems, feasts, legal gatherings, family settings, and religious contexts. Oral traditions change as they move from one speaker to another. A poet may shorten a tale, add an image, change an emphasis, or assume that listeners know the beginning already. This means there was probably never one fixed version of every myth. So, different regions and generations may have told related stories in different ways. That uncertainty is not a weakness. It is part of the life of mythology. A living story can bend with the voices that carry it. Imagine a small fire lowering in a distant hall, while someone quietly remembers the next part of the tale. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting out of sight. Fact 5. Norse mythology was not a single fixed system with one official rule book. Modern retellings often arrange Norse mythology into neat lists and family trees. The surviving sources are much messier. A god may be described differently in different poems. A place may have more than one name. A story may appear in a short poetic hint in one source and a full narrative in another. The ancient tradition likely changed across time and place. Norse mythology is better imagined as a collection of overlapping songs and stories than as a single locked cabinet of facts. That makes it especially suitable for a quiet evening. It is a landscape of paths, not a straight road. Let the myth become softer at the edges, as if heard from far away across water and winter fields. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 6. Myth and everyday religion were connected, but they were not identical. The myths tell grand stories about gods, giants, creation, and the future of the world. Everyday religious practice involved other things as well: offerings, local sacred places, household concerns, rites connected with seasons and hopes for protection or good fortune. A story about Thor fighting a giant is not the same as evidence for how every person prayed or acted. Archaeology, place names, written reports, and objects help fill part of the picture, but many details remain uncertain. The safest approach is to let myth and religion stand close together without pretending they are exactly the same thing. For a moment, leave the gods where they are and listen only to the wind moving slowly through the trees. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 7. The Old Norse gods were worshipped before the Viking Age. The Viking Age is usually placed between the late 8th and late 11th centuries, but the roots of Norse religious traditions are older. Archaeological evidence and place names suggest that gods such as Odin, Thor, Tyr, Freyja, and Freyja belonged to a broader pre-Christian Scandinavian religious world that developed over many centuries. The myths did not appear suddenly when Viking ships began traveling overseas. They were part of a deeper cultural inheritance shaped by Iron Age societies, local landscapes, and contact with neighboring peoples. The Viking Age made some of the stories more visible to us, but it did not create the entire mythic world from nothing. Picture the world tree standing in the dark, silent and steady, with its roots hidden below the ground. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you, while you do not need to hold on to anything at all. Fact 8. The word Norse refers to a wider northern cultural world. Norse mythology is linked especially to Old Norse-speaking communities in Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Iceland, and parts of the North Atlantic. Yet the wider Germanic world also shared related names, stories, and ideas. Odin, for example, is related to the Anglo-Saxon Woden, and Thor is related to the Anglo-Saxon Thunor. Similarities do not mean that every community believed exactly the same things. They show that languages and traditions had long family connections. The myths were local and international, at once shaped by the northern lands but also linked to older patterns across Europe. Allow the old story to rest for a moment, with no need to solve every mystery before sleep. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 9. The beginning of the world is told in several different ways. The poem Völuspá, often translated as the prophecy of the seeress, opens with a vast vision of creation, destruction, and renewal. Other sources add different details. This variety matters because it reminds us that Norse cosmology was not one perfectly unified diagram. Still, certain images return again and again. A yawning emptiness, the first giant, the growth of a world, the ordering of sky and earth, and the arrival of the first human beings. These images do not feel like a scientific explanation. They feel like poetic attempts to imagine how something could rise from silence. Imagine a raven crossing a pale moon, carrying a thought you can let go of before it returns. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 10. Ginnungar Gap was a great gap before the ordered world. In the mythic beginning, Ginnungar Gap is often described as a vast gap or yawning void. It lay between regions of cold and heat. The word itself suggests an open space that is difficult to picture. Something before roads, trees, homes, and names. In this emptiness, the conditions for creation begin to gather. The image is gentle in its own strange way. Before there is noise, there is space. Before there are people, there is stillness. The myths begin not with a crowded world, but with a quiet place where possibility has not yet taken shape. Let the road through the myth grow quiet again, wide enough for every name and every silence. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep. Fact 11. Fire and frost meet at the edge of creation. Norse creation stories often describe a cold region called Niflheim and a hot, bright region associated with Muspel. Where the frost and heat meet across Ginnungar Gap, something new begins. This image of creation through contrast is one of the most memorable features of the myths. It is not simply good against evil. It is cold and warmth, stillness and movement, darkness and brightness. The old poets used the natural forces familiar to northern life and expanded them into a cosmic scale. The world begins as weather made enormous. Picture a covered lamp beside a sleeping hearth, while the old words fade into a warm, gentle hush. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 12. Ymir is the first great being in many Norse creation stories. From the meeting of frost and heat comes Ymir, a primordial giant. The word giant can make him sound like a monster from a modern fantasy story, but in the myths giants are older and more complicated than simple enemies. Ymir belongs to the earliest layer of existence, before the world has taken its familiar shape. Later stories describe gods and giants as related through family lines, even while they struggle against one another. Ymir stands at the beginning, enormous and strange. A figure from a time before the world had been divided into its known places. Rest with the idea that even the largest stories are carried forward by small voices and careful memory. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos. A single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 13. Audhumbla, the primeval cow, also belongs to the beginning. Alongside Ymir appears Audhumbla, a great cow who nourishes him with her milk. She survives by licking salty rhinestones. As she licks, another being gradually emerges from the ice, Buri, an ancestor of the gods. The scene may sound unusual to modern ears, but it uses images of food, animals, ice, and patient labor. Creation does not rush. A figure is slowly revealed, one lick at a time. In a mythology full of storms and future battles, Audhumbla offers one of the quietest images. A creature standing in the frost, making life possible. Let the distant halls of the gods remain far away, quiet beneath the same stars that shine above you. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 14. Buri becomes an ancestor of the gods. Buri emerges from the frost through Auðumbla's patient licking. He later has a son named Bor, who joins with Bestla, a figure associated with the giant world. Their sons are Odin, Vili, and Ve in Snorri's account. This family connection is important because it shows that gods and giants are not completely separate species. They belong to an interwoven mythic family, even when they become rivals. The Norse cosmos is not divided into clean boxes. Its earliest generations are connected by kinship, conflict, and inherited obligations. Imagine water moving softly beneath ice, patient and unseen, while the night becomes deeper. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting off sight. Fact 15. Odin, Vili, and Ve shape the world from Ymir's body. In one famous creation account, the brothers Odin, Vili, and Ve kill Ymir and make the world from his body. His flesh becomes earth, his blood becomes sea, his bones become mountains, and his skull becomes the sky. The imagery is vivid and ancient, turning the giant's body into landscape. It reminds us that myth often explains the world through metaphor rather than ordinary logic. Mountains become bones, clouds become thoughts or fragments of the brain. The land itself feels alive because it is imagined as once belonging to a living being. Take a slow breath and allow the story to become only a calm shape beyond the edge of thought. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 16. The sky is held above the world like a great roof. In the Prose Edda's creation story, the gods use Ymir's skull to make the sky. They set it above the earth and place dwarfs at its corners to hold it up. Those dwarfs are named Norðri, Suðri, Austri, and Vestri, which correspond to north, south, east, and west. The myth turns directions into beings and gives the sky a structure that must be supported. It is a poetic way of saying that the world has order. Above the earth is a roof of blue and darkness, held steady by powers at the edge of the horizon. Picture a path between dark pines with no footsteps on it now and no reason to hurry forward. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 17. The sun and moon are given their paths across the sky. Norse sources tell of the sun and moon traveling through the heavens in chariots. They are pursued by wolves, which gives their daily movement a sense of urgency. The sun is called Sol, and the moon is Mani. In some stories, their paths are part of the cosmic order set in place by the gods. The myth turns the ordinary rhythm of day and night into a journey. Each sunrise becomes a narrow escape. Each sunset becomes a temporary disappearance. The sky is not empty. It is full of movement, memory, and mythic pursuit. Let the old names pass by like clouds, leaving the sky clearer and calmer behind them. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you, while you do not need to hold onto anything at all. Fact 18. Night and day are also personified in the myths. The Prose Edda describes night, called Not, as a dark figure who rides across the sky. Her son, Day, called Da, follows her with brightness. Their horses carry them through the heavens, and the world experiences the passing of darkness and light. This is one of the most restful ideas in Norse myth. Day and night are not enemies trying to destroy each other. They take turns. Each has a route. Each arrives when the other has gone. The old stories turn the daily cycle into a gentle procession that has been moving long before human memory began. Imagine a low murmur of waves against a northern shore, steady enough to carry the next fact gently onward. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 19. Ask and Embla are the first human beings in one Norse account. In the mythic story of human origins, Odin and his brothers find two pieces of wood by the shore and shape them into the first man and woman, Ask and Embla. The gods give them breath, understanding, senses, and appearance. Different sources emphasize different gifts, but the central image remains calm and memorable. People are made from driftwood at the water's edge. The story ties human life to the sea, the trees, and the gift of breath. It is a small beginning, after the enormous story of giants and worlds. For now, leave the question open. The myths have waited centuries, and can wait until morning. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 20. Midgard is the world of human beings. Midgard means something like the middle enclosure, or middle world. It is the place where humans live, set between other realms in the Norse cosmos. In some accounts, the gods make a protective boundary around it, from Ymir's eyebrows. The name suggests a place held in the middle, neither wholly safe nor wholly outside danger. Humans live within a world that is connected to gods, giants, spirits, and the restless sea, but also separated from them by boundaries. Midgard is familiar ground made secure for a while. Picture a quiet doorway in a longhouse with one thin line of warm light beneath it. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep. Fact 21. Asgard is the home of many gods. Asgard is often described as the dwelling place of the gods, especially the Aesir. In medieval descriptions, it contains halls, bridges, walls, and special places associated with different divine figures. It can feel like a heavenly fortress, but it is not simply a distant paradise. The gods travel out of it, argue in it, host guests, and worry about the future. Asgard has a sense of order, yet it is never completely free from trouble. Even the home of the gods stands within a cosmos where change is always approaching. Allow the story to pause, as though every creature in the mythic world has grown still for a moment. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 22. Jotunheim is connected with the giants. Jotunheim is the realm associated with many giants, or Jotnar. Modern retellings often make it sound like a completely separate evil land, but the old stories are more complicated. Giants can be enemies, relatives, spouses, hosts, challengers, and sources of wisdom. Several gods have giant ancestry or giant partners. Jotunheim represents a world beyond the familiar order of Asgard, full of wildness, distance, old knowledge, and danger. It is not merely the opposite of the gods' world. It is part of the same larger family of myth. Let the stars above Midgard remain where they are, slow and silent, while your thoughts soften. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos. A single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 23. Giants are not always simple villains. The Jotnar are often powerful rivals of the gods, and Thor especially confronts them in many stories. Yet, giants also provide important knowledge, marry into divine families, and take part in the origins of the cosmos. Loki himself is described as being of giant stock, while living among the gods. The giant world can represent forces that are difficult to control: winter, wilderness, age, hunger, the sea, or the unknown. But it is also deeply connected to the gods. The Norse myths rarely divide the universe into pure heroes and pure monsters. Imagine the sound of a distant hammer fading until only the calm of the night is left. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 24. Yggdrasil is the great tree at the center of the cosmos. Yggdrasil is the world tree, usually imagined as an immense ash tree whose branches and roots connect different parts of the cosmos. It is one of the most enduring images in Norse mythology. The tree is alive, but it is also under strain. Creatures live around it, messages move along it, and its roots reach toward important wells and regions. Yggdrasil holds the worlds together, yet it is not untouched by pain or decay. It creaks, suffers, and endures. This makes it feel less like a perfect symbol and more like a living world. Rest beside this thought for a moment, like a traveler resting beside a fire before continuing at dawn. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting out of sight. Fact 25. Several roots of Yggdrasil reach toward different places. The surviving sources describe Yggdrasil as having roots that extend into different realms. One root is associated with the well of Uther, another with Mimir's well, and another with the cold region connected with Niflheim. The exact arrangement can vary, depending on how the sources are read. What matters most is the image of hidden roots reaching into deep places of knowledge, fate, memory, and cold. The visible tree stands above the world, but its strength depends on what lies beneath. It is a calm reminder that every great thing is supported by roots we cannot easily see. Let the old world grow quiet in your mind, held gently between frost, fire, and sleep. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 26. The Norns are connected with fate at the well of Uther. Near one of Yggdrasil's roots live the Norns, oftener named Erther, Verdandi, and Skuld. Their names are sometimes connected with what has happened, what is becoming, and what is owed or yet to come. They are associated with fate, though the old sources do not give us a simple, modern theory of destiny. The Norns care for the tree and are said to shape or mark the lives of beings. Their presence gives the Norse cosmos a quiet sense that time is not random. Past, present, and future are woven together beside the roots of the world tree. Let that image settle now, like snow resting softly on the beam of an old wooden hall. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 27. Mimir's well is linked with wisdom. Mimir's well lies near a root of Yggdrasil and is associated with deep knowledge. Odin gives one of his eyes in exchange for a drink from it. The story is often told as a lesson that wisdom has a price. In the old myths, knowledge is rarely effortless. It may require sacrifice, travel, patience, or the willingness to see the world differently. Well itself is a peaceful image, dark water below the roots of the world tree, holding something older than ordinary memory. Picture the northern sky growing darker and calmer while the story moves on at its own patient pace. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you, while you do not need to hold on to anything at all. Fact 28. Ratatoska carries words along the world tree. Ratatosa is a squirrel who runs up and down Yggdrasil, carrying hostile messages between an eagle high in the branches and the serpent Nidhogger below. The story is small and oddly human. Even at the center of the cosmos, communication can become quarrelsome. A tiny creature moves between great powers, repeating words and making trouble. Yet the image is not only comic. It shows that the world tree is alive with movement. Between roots and branches, messages travel, creatures watch, and small actions can disturb large things. Take an easy breath and let the name drift away, leaving only a quiet road beneath the stars. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 29. Nidhogger gnaws near the roots of Yggdrasil. Nidhogger, sometimes translated as a malice streaker, is a serpent or dragon-like being associated with the roots of the world tree. The creature gnaws beneath the great ash, while other beings live in its branches and around its trunk. This suggests that even the center of the cosmos contains wear and strain. Yggdrasil is not a tree preserved in perfect calm. It must endure the pressure of time, creatures, and fate. The old myth allows the world to be beautiful and vulnerable at the same time. Imagine a small fire lowering in a distant hall, while someone quietly remembers the next part of the tale. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 30. The phrase, 9 worlds, appears in the sources, but the full list is not fixed. Many people learn that Norse mythology contains 9 worlds. The number does appear in old sources, yet the surviving texts do not give one universally agreed list of exactly 9 realms. Modern charts often arrange Asgard, Midgard, Jotunheim, Niflheim, Muspel, and others into a tidy system. The medieval evidence is less precise. This uncertainty is worth keeping. It reminds us that mythic geography was poetic, shifting, and sometimes deliberately mysterious. The worlds are better imagined as connected regions of story than as numbered rooms in a building. Let the myth become softer at the edges, as if heard from far away across water and winter fields. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep. Fact 31. The Aesir are one major group of gods. The Aesir include figures such as Odin, Thor, Frigg, Tyr, Heimdall, and others. They are often associated with Asgard, and with power, order, war, protection, and social bonds. But the group is not completely stable or simple. Some gods have giant ancestry. Some figures appear in different roles across different stories of. The word Aesir helps organize the myths. Yet it does not erase their complexity. Like a family in an old saga, the gods are connected by kinship, obligation, rivalry, and shared concern for a future they cannot fully avoid. For a moment, leave the gods where they are, and listen only to the wind moving slowly through the trees. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 32. The Vanir are another important group of gods. The Vanir include Njörður, Freyja, and Freyja in the best-known sources. They are often connected with fertility, wealth, the sea, desire, and prosperity. In the myths, the Aesir and Vanir once fight a war and later exchange hostages, creating a lasting connection between the two groups. This is one of the ways Norse mythology shows that different powers can become linked after conflict. The divine world is not one uniform court. It contains separate traditions, families, and interests that must learn to exist together. Picture the world tree standing in the dark, silent and steady, with its roots hidden below the ground. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos. A single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 33. The war between Aesir and Vanir ends with exchange rather than total victory. After conflict between the two groups of gods, the myths describe a settlement in which important figures are exchanged. Njörður, Freyja, and Freyja come to live among the Aesir, while Honir and Mimir go to the Vanir. The story may preserve a memory of different religious traditions meeting, though scholars debate how literally such myths should read. On the surface, it gives the gods a lesson in compromise. A war ends not because one side disappears, but because both sides become entangled in a new arrangement. Allow the old story to rest for a moment, with no need to solve every mystery before sleep. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 34. Odin is a god of many difficult things. Odin is associated with war, the dead, poetry, runes, wisdom, kingship, disguise, and magic. He is not usually the calmest or most predictable god in the myths. He seeks knowledge constantly, sometimes at great cost, and his actions can be generous, mysterious, or unsettling. Odin's complexity makes him unlike a simple ruler who always does the right thing. He is a figure of hunger for understanding, power, and poetry. In the old stories, wisdom is not always gentle. It can demand sacrifice and leave a person changed. Imagine a raven crossing a pale moon, carrying a thought you can let go of before it returns. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting out of sight. Fact 35. Odin's one eye is linked with Mimir's well. One of the most famous stories about Odin tells that he gives an eye to Mimir in exchange for a drink from the well of wisdom. The image is so strong that Odin is often shown with one eye. It is not merely a detail of appearance. It expresses the idea that seeing deeply may require giving something up. The story turns wisdom into an exchange. Odin does not receive knowledge as a gift. He pays for it. For a moment, imagine the well beneath the roots of Yggdrasil, dark and still, holding its answer in the water. Let the road through the myth grow quiet again, wide enough for every name and every silence. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 36. Odin's ravens are named Hugin and Munin. Hugin and Munin are Odin's two ravens. Their names are commonly translated as thought and memory. In the myths, they fly over the world and return to Odin with news. The image gives Odin an extended awareness, as if part of his mind is always moving across the land. Ravens were familiar birds in the northern world, intelligent, watchful, and often found around battlefields or settlements. In the myths, they become messengers, carrying knowledge back to a god who never stops seeking it. Their daily flight is one of the quieter patterns in the Norse imagination. Picture a covered lamp beside a sleeping hearth, while the old words fade into a warm, gentle hush. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 37. Odin also has two wolves, Geri and Freki. Odin's wolves are named Geri and Freki, names often connected with greed or ravenous hunger. In poetic descriptions, Odin gives them food, while he himself lives on wine. These details make the god's hall feel strange and symbolic. Ravens bring news from the world. Wolves sit near the ruler of the slain. Odin is surrounded by creatures connected with wildness, appetite, and the edges of human life. The mythology does not make him a domestic king. It makes him a wandering, watchful, and sometimes unsettling figure. Rest with the idea that even the largest stories are carried forward by small voices and careful memory. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you while you do not need to hold on to anything at all. Fact 38. Odin is strongly connected with poetry. In Norse myth, poetry is not treated as a small decoration. It is a powerful substance with a story of its own. Odin seeks the mead of poetry, a drink that gives inspiration and skill in verse. He uses disguising, travel, seduction, and cunning to obtain it. The tale suggests that poetic ability comes from something rare and costly. For the old skalds, who composed difficult praise poems, this made sense. Poetry was a craft, but it was also imagined as a gift touched by the divine. Let the distant halls of the gods remain far away, quiet, beneath the same stars that shine above you. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 39. Odin is also associated with the discovery of runes. In the poem Havamal, Odin describes hanging on a wind-swept tree for 9 nights, wounded by a spear in a self-sacrifice connected with the gaining of runes. The passage is poetic and difficult, and scholars continue to discuss its meaning. What matters for the myth is that knowledge comes through ordeal. Runes are not presented as ordinary letters alone. They are linked with insight, speech, memory, and power. The story turns writing into a mystery through endurance, rather than invented in a workshop. Imagine water moving softly beneath ice, patient and unseen, while the night becomes deeper. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 40. Valhalla is Odin's hall of the slain. Valhalla means the hall of those killed in battle. In the mythic tradition, selected warriors are brought there by Valkyries after death. They feast and prepare for the final events of Ragnarök. Modern popular culture sometimes treats Valhalla as the only Norse afterlife, but the sources describe several destinations for the dead. Valhalla belongs especially to a warrior ideal associated with Odin. It is one part of a much wider and more varied picture of death, memory, family, and the afterlife in the old northern world. Take a slow breath and allow the story to become only a calm shape, the edge of thought. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep. Fact 41. Valkyries are choosers of the slain. The word Valkyria is often understood as chooser of the slain. Valkyries appear in Old Norse poetry and prose as female figures connected with Odin, battle, death, and Valhalla. They may arrive armed on the battlefield or welcome the dead in a hall. Viking Age images of women holding drinking horns are sometimes interpreted as Valkyries, though such images require caution and context. In the myths, Valkyries are both frightening and ceremonial. They bring the warrior world into contact with a future beyond ordinary life. Picture a path between dark pines, with no footsteps on it now, and no reason to hurry forward. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 42. Not everyone who died was imagined as going to Valhalla. Norse sources describe more than one destination for the dead. Some people are associated with hell, some with Freyja's field, Folkvanger, and some may remain connected to burial mounds, ancestors, or other local ideas. The evidence is incomplete and varied. The important point is that Viking Age beliefs about death were not reduced to one single hall. Valhalla is famous because its stories are dramatic, but it did not stand for every person or every hope. The old northern imagination of death was broader, quieter, and more complicated than a single heroic ending. Let the old names pass by, like clouds, leaving the sky clearer and calmer behind them. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos, a single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 43. Thor is one of the most widely recognized Norse gods. Thor is associated with thunder, strength, protection, fertility, and the defense of the human world. In surviving sources and archaeological finds, he appears to have been especially important to many people in Scandinavia. He is often shown traveling, eating, arguing, and confronting giants with direct force. Compared with Odin's secretive search for wisdom, Thor can feel more immediate. He is loud when the storm arrives, but his role is protective. He stands between the settled world and forces that threaten to overwhelm it. Imagine a low murmur of waves against a northern shore, steady enough to carry the next fact gently onward. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 44. Mjolnir is Thor's famous hammer. Thor's hammer is called Mjolnir. It is used against giants and other dangerous beings, but it is also connected with blessing and protection. In stories, the hammer can be thrown and returned to Thor's hand. Archaeologists have found many hammer-shaped pendants from the Viking Age, suggesting that the symbol mattered beyond poetry alone. Such pendants were likely worn in different contexts and may have expressed religious identity, protection, or cultural belonging. So, a small hammer carried on a cord could hold the memory of thunder in the palm of a hand. For now, leave the question open. The myths have waited centuries and can wait until morning. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting out of sight. Fact 45. Thor rides in a chariot drawn by goats. The myths tell that Thor travels in a chariot drawn by two goats, Tangrisnir and Tangnjostad. Their names are often translated as something like teeth-bearer and teeth-grinder. The sound of the chariot across the clouds is linked with thunder. In one story, Thor can slaughter the goats for a meal and restore them to life if their bones are placed carefully in their skins. The tale is strange, humorous, and full of practical details. Even the god of thunder has animals, a vehicle, and the need to share food on a journey. Picture a quiet doorway in a longhouse with one thin line of warm light beneath it. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 46. Thor's fishing trip with the Midgard serpent is one of the best-known myths. In several versions of the story, Thor goes fishing with the giant Hymir. He uses an ox head as bait and hooks Jormungandr, the vast serpent that lies in the sea around Midgard. For a moment, God and serpent face each other. Thor pulls with all his strength, and the serpent rises from the water. The story is full of tension, but it also begins with an ordinary activity. A fishing trip, a boat, a line, the sea, and a challenge beneath the surface. The myth makes the familiar world suddenly enormous. Allow the story to pause, as though every creature in the mythic world has grown still for a moment. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 47. Thor's journeys often involve giants and tests. Many Thor stories send him beyond Asgard into places connected with giants. He may be challenged to drink from an impossible horn, lift what seems like a small animal, or wrestle an old woman who turns out to be something far more powerful. These stories often mix strength with trickery. Thor is mighty, but he can be deceived by appearances. The myths do not simply praise force. They remind listeners that the world contains hidden measures of power. What looks small may be the sea. What looks old may be time itself. Let the stars above Midgard remain where they are, slow and silent, while your thoughts soften. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you, while you do not need to hold onto anything at all. Fact 48. Sif is associated with golden hair. Sif is Thor's wife in the surviving sources, and one of her best-known features is her long golden hair. In a famous tale, Loki cuts it off as a prank. To repair the harm, he seeks dwarfs who make a new head of hair from gold that grows like real hair. The story leads to the creation of several treasured objects, including Thor's hammer. Sif herself is not described in as much detail as some other gods, but her golden hair has often been linked by later readers with grain or fertility. The sources themselves leave much of her character quiet and open. Imagine the sound of a distant hammer fading until only the calm of the night is left. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 49. Loki is a complicated figure within the myths. Loki is often called a trickster, but that label is only a beginning. He helps the gods in some stories and causes serious harm in others. He is clever, changeable, and closely connected with the giant world. Yet he lives among the gods. At times, he solves problems that he helped create. At other times, he becomes their most dangerous enemy. Loki's unpredictability gives the myths a restless energy. He cannot be placed neatly on one side. He is both inside and outside the divine community. Rest beside this thought for a moment. Hike, like a traveler resting beside a fire before continuing at dawn. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 50. Loki changes shape in several stories. The surviving myths describe Loki taking different forms, including a salmon, a fly, and a mare. Shape changing is part of his ability to cross boundaries that other figures keep more carefully. In the story of the building of Asgard's wall, Loki becomes a mare and later gives birth to Odin's eight-legged horse, Sleipnir. These tales can seem surprising, but they show how myth allows identity to be flexible and strange. Loki's transformations are not ordinary disguises. They reveal a being who does not remain fixed in one role or one body. Let the old world grow quiet in your mind, held gently between frost, fire, and sleep. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep. Fact 51. Fenrir is the great wolf feared by the gods. Fenrir is one of Loki's children in the myths. As he grows, the gods become afraid of his strength and decide to bind him. They try several chains, but he breaks them easily. Finally, the dwarfs make a magical fetter called Gleipnir from impossible ingredients, including the sound of a cat's footsteps and the roots of a mountain. Fenrir senses a trap and agrees to be bound, only if a god places a hand in his mouth as a pledge. The story is tense because it shows fear creating the very future the gods hope to avoid. Let that image settle now, like snow resting softly on the beam of an old wooden hall. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 52. Tyr loses his hand while Fenrir is bound. Tyr is the god who places his hand in Fenrir's mouth so that the wolf accept the binding. When Fenrir realizes that he cannot break free, he bites off Tyr's hand. This act makes Tyr a figure of courage, law, and costly trust in later interpretation. The story is not a simple victory. The gods succeed in binding the wolf, but they do so through deception and sacrifice. Tyr pays the price. The myth leaves us with a quieter lesson. Even necessary choices can wound the person who makes them. Picture the northern sky growing darker and calmer, while the story moves on at its own patient pace. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos. A single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 53. Jormungandr is the serpent that circles Midgard. Jormungandr, also called the Midgard serpent, is another child of Loki in the mythic family. Odin throws the serpent into the sea, where it grows so large that it encircles the human world and holds its own tail. This image has fascinated artists for centuries, a serpent lying beneath the ocean surrounding the known world. Jormungandr is not simply an animal. It marks the boundary of Midgard and the scale of the unknown sea. When Thor hooks it on his fishing line, the human world seems very small indeed. Take an easy breath and let the name drift away, leaving only a quiet road beneath the stars. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 54. Hel is both a figure and the name of a realm. Hel is a daughter of Loki in the surviving myths, and her name is also used for the realm where many of the dead go. This can be confusing because modern English speakers often hear the word through later Christian ideas of hell. In Norse mythology, hell is not simply a place of fire and punishment. It is a more complex underworld destination, often described as cold, shadowed, and distant. Its ruler, Hel, is portrayed in striking and sometimes grim imagery. The old mythic landscape contains many kinds of death, not one single afterlife. Imagine a small fire lowering in a distant hall, while someone quietly remembers the next part of the tale. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting out of sight. Fact 55. Balder is associated with beauty, goodness, and a terrible loss. Balder, often called Balder in English, is a beloved son of Odin and Frigg. In the myths, he begins to dream of his own death, and his mother seeks promises from things in the world that they will not harm him. After this, the gods amuse themselves by throwing harmless objects at Balder, but mistletoe is overlooked, and Loki uses it to bring about Balder's death. The story is quiet and sad because it begins with protection and trust. The smallest forgotten thing becomes the doorway through which grief enters. Let the myth become softer at the edges, as if heard from far away across water and winter fields. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 56. Balder's death shows that the gods cannot avoid every loss. After Balder dies, the gods try to bring him back from hell. The condition is that every being must weep for him. Nearly all do, but one figure, often understood as Loki in disguise, refuses. Balder remains among the dead until after Ragnarök, in some accounts. The myth is powerful because the gods are not able to fix what has happened. They can travel, plead, and mourn, but they cannot completely reverse loss. Even in a world of magic, there are limits. Grief has its own weight. For a moment, leave the gods where they are, and listen only to the wind moving slowly through the trees. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 57. Frigg is associated with foresight and domestic authority. Frigg is Odin's wife in many sources and is connected with marriage, household life, fate, and knowledge of what's to come. The stories do not always give her the same kind of dramatic adventures as Thor or Loki. Yet she is a figure of deep importance. In the Balder story, her concern for her son drives the attempt to protect him from harm. Frigg knows much, but she cannot control every outcome. That combination of wisdom and limitations gives her a quiet, human depth within the divine world. Picture the world tree standing in the dark, silent and steady, with its roots hidden below the ground. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you, while you do not need to hold on to anything at all. Fact 58. Freyja is one of the most important goddesses in the surviving myths. Freyja is associated with love, desire, beauty, wealth, magic, battle, and the dead. She belongs to the Vanir, but lives among the Aesir after the war between the divine groups. The sources describe her receiving a share of those killed in battle, which again reminds us that Valhalla is not the only destination for the dead. Freyja appears in stories of longing, loss, travel, and magical knowledge. She is not a minor or decorative goddess. She is powerful, complex, and closely tied to several central themes of the mythic world. Allow the old story to rest for a moment. with no need to solve every mystery before sleep. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 59. Freyja is associated with seithr, a form of magic. Seithr is a term used in Old Norse sources for practices connected with prophecy, altered states knowledge, and influencing events. Freyja is described as teaching seithr to the ice in Yggdrasil's account. The exact nature of historical seithr is difficult to reconstruct because the sources are late and varied. Archaeology has found staffs and unusual grave, objects that are sometimes linked with seeress's or ritual specialists. The safest conclusion is that the old northern world included respected and feared forms of knowledge that crossed ordinary boundaries. Imagine a raven crossing a pale moon, carrying a thought you can let go of before it returns. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 60. Some old sources associate Freyja with a feathered cloak. In several stories, Freyja owns a cloak of falcon feathers that allows its wearer to fly or travel in bird form. Loki borrows it in one famous tale. The cloak fits Freyja's larger connection with movement, magic, and the ability to pass between places. Mythic objects often do more than serve a practical purpose. They express a character's nature. A feather cloak belongs to a goddess who cannot be contained by one hall, one road, or one ordinary role. It is an image of freedom, speed, and mystery. Let the road through the myth grow quiet again, wide enough for every name and every silence. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep. Fact 61. Freyja is linked with fertility, peace, and prosperity. Freyja is a Vanir god and the brother of Freyja. He is associated with good harvests, peace, wealth, and the well-being of the land. In a society dependent on farming, weather, and animals, such a god would matter greatly. Freyja is not only a figure of abundance. In some myths, he is also a figure of longing. He sees the giantess Gertha and becomes deeply unhappy until a difficult courtship is arranged. The story brings desire and the meeting of worlds into the realm of fertility and prosperity. Picture a covered lamp beside a sleeping hearth while the old words fade into a warm, gentle hush. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 62. Frey owns the ship Skidbladnir. Skidbladnir is a remarkable ship belonging to Frey. It can always find a favorable wind when its sail is raised, and it can be folded up when not in use. The image has a dreamlike practicality. The perfect ship becomes small enough to carry. It is a gift from dwarfs, who in many myths are makers of extraordinary objects. For people who lived beside coasts, fjords, and dangerous seas, a ship that always had a good wind would have seemed like a marvelous promise of safe passage. Rest with the idea that even the largest stories are carried forward by small voices and careful memory. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos. A single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 63. Njörður is associated with the sea, wealth, and seafaring. Njörður is the father of Freyja and belongs to the Vanir. He is associated with ships, the sea, fishing, wealth, and the gifts of coastal life. In one story, he marries the giantess Skarði, but their preferred homes are too different. Njörður loves the sea and the sound of seabirds, while Skarði prefers the mountains and wolves. They try to live in each other's worlds, but neither feels at home. The tale is gentle and sad. Even gods may discover that love does not erase the pull of landscape. Let the distant halls of the gods remain far away, quiet beneath the same stars that shine above you. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 64. Skarði is connected with mountains, snow, and hunting. Skarði is a giantess who becomes part of the divine world. She is associated with skiing, hunting, cold mountains, and the sound of wolves. Her marriage with Njörður joins two environments that do not easily fit together, the shore and the highlands. She is also involved in the punishment of Loki after Baldra's death. Skarði's presence shows again that the boundary between gods and giants is never absolute. A giantess can enter the gods' world and remain distinct, carrying the mountain landscape with her. Imagine water moving softly beneath ice, patient and unseen, while the night becomes deeper. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting out of sight. Fact 65. Heimdall guards the way to the gods' world. Heimdall is associated with vigilance, hearing, light, and the protection of Asgard. He is said to need less sleep than a bird, and to hear grass growing or wool growing on sheep. Such descriptions are poetic ways of making him impossibly alert. Heimdall stands at the edge of the gods' world, watching for danger. He possesses the horn Gjallarhorn, which he will sound at Ragnarök. In a mythology full of travel and uncertainty, Heimdall is the figure who never stops listening. Take a slow breath and allow the story to become only a calm shape beyond the edge of thought. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 66. Bifrost is the bridge between worlds. Bifrost is commonly described as the rainbow bridge that connects the human world and the gods' realm. The sources present it as bright, strong, and also vulnerable. During Ragnarök, it is expected to break under the movement of destructive forces. The bridge makes the cosmos feel connected. The gods are distant, but not unreachable. Yet every bridge requires care, and no bridge lasts forever in the old myths. Bifrost is beautiful because it is both a path and a reminder that paths can change. Picture a path between dark pines, with no footsteps on it now, and no reason to hurry forward. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 67. Idun keeps the apples that help the gods remain young. Idun's is associated with apples that preserve the youth of the gods. In one tale, Loki is forced to help a giant steal her away from Asgard. Without her apples, the gods begin to grow old. The story gives immortality a practical dependence. Even the gods need someone to care for a precious store. Idun's apples are not simply a magic treasure. They are part of a cycle of renewal, guarded by a figure whose work matters to everyone else. When she is absent, time begins to show its face. Let the old names pass by like clouds, leaving the sky clearer and calmer behind them. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you, while you do not need to hold on to anything at all. Fact 68. Bragi is associated with poetry and eloquence. Bragi is a god connected with poetry, song, and the skill of words. He is often imagined as an eloquent figure in the halls of the gods. His name may also be related to the word for poetry in Old Norse, though scholars debate some details. In a culture where praise poems could preserve a ruler's reputation and a skilled verse could carry history, a god of poetry makes sense. Why? Bragi represents the careful shaping of language. He belongs to the quieter power of the spoken line and the remembered name. Imagine a low murmur of waves against a northern shore, steady enough to carry the next fact gently onward. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 69. Kvasir is a being made from the wisdom of two divine groups. After the heirs and Vanir make peace, they each spit into a vessel as a sign of their agreement. From this shared substance comes Kvasir, a being of extraordinary wisdom. Kvasir travels and answers questions, but he is later killed by dwarfs, who mix his blood with honey to create the mead of poetry. The story is strange, but it gives poetry a deep origin. Inspiration comes from reconciliation, wisdom, violence, honey, and transformation. A drink becomes a song. A loss becomes a source of creative power. For now, leave the question open. The myths have waited centuries and can wait until morning. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 70. The mead of poetry is a treasure that moves through several hands. After Kvasir's blood is made into mead, it passes through dwarfs, a giant, and eventually Odin. The drink gives poetic skill to whoever tastes it. Odin's quest to obtain it is full of disguise, negotiation, and escape. In the end, some of the mead is said to spill out and become the source of lesser poetry. This humorous detail suggests that not every poem is equally inspired. The myth treats language as something that can be brewed, guarded, stolen, shared, and occasionally spilled into the world. Picture a quiet doorway in a longhouse with one thin line of warm light beneath it. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep. Fact 71. Dwarfs are often portrayed as makers of remarkable things. In Norse myths, dwarfs are associated with skill, metalwork, craft, knowledge, and underground places. They create many famous objects, including Mjolnir, Freyja's ship, Odin's ring Draupnir, and the golden hair for Sif. The sources do not present dwarfs as a single simple people with one personality. They can be wise, dangerous, generous, or difficult. Their importance lies in making. They turn hidden materials into objects that shape the fate of gods. In the old stories, craft is a kind of power. Allow the story to pause, as though every creature in the mythic world has grown still for a moment. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 72. Elves are more mysterious than modern fantasy often suggests. Old Norse sources mention elves, including Yggdrasil, sometimes called light elves, and Kalfar, sometimes called dark elves in Snorri's writing. But the evidence is not clear enough to give a complete and simple account of what elves were believed to be in every period. They appear as otherworldly beings connected with beauty, ancestry, illness, danger, or hidden places in different traditions. It is best not to force them into a modern fantasy category. The old elves remain partly in shadow, like figures glimpsed beyond the edge of a firelit field. Let the stars above Midgard remain where they are, slow and silent, while your thoughts soften. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos. A single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 73. The word Disir refers to female protective or ancestral beings in some sources. The Disir are female supernatural figures mentioned in poems and sagas. They may be connected with protection, family lines, fate, or the dead, but the evidence is varied and difficult to reduce to one definition. Their very ambiguity is meaningful. The spiritual world of the North was not made only of famous gods with named halls. It also included closer, smaller, and less clearly defined presences linked to households, kinship, and place. A family might imagine the unseen world not only in the sky, but near the threshold and the grave mound. Imagine the sound of a distant hammer fading until only the calm of the night is left. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 74. Landvættir are spirits associated with the land. Landvættir are land spirits mentioned in Old Norse and later Icelandic traditions. They are connected with particular landscapes and can be treated with respect or caution. One famous Icelandic story tells of a ruler's magician seeing guardian spirits around the island. Whether read as myth, legend, or cultural memory, such stories show how landscape could be understood as inhabited and responsive. A mountain, headland, field, or shore was not only a resource. It could also have a presence. The land had character, and people were expected to notice. Rest beside this thought for a moment, like a traveler resting beside a fire before continuing at dawn. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting out of sight. Fact 75. Place names preserve traces of old gods. Names of places in Scandinavia can preserve echoes of older religious traditions. Some are connected with Odin, Thor, Tyr, Freyja, or other figures. A place name does not always prove exactly how worship happened there, but it can show that a god's name mattered to the people who named the landscape. Long after myths changed, a hill, village, or field could keep an old divine reference. This is one of the quiet ways mythology survives, not only in books, but in the names people use when they point toward home. Let the old world grow quiet in your mind, held gently between frost, fire, and sleep. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 76. Thor's name survives in the English word Thursday. Several English weekday names preserve traces of Germanic gods. Thursday comes from Thor's day. Wednesday comes from Woden's day, with Woden being related to Odin. Tuesday is connected with Tyr through the Anglo-Saxon god Tiao. Friday may be linked with Frigg or Freyja through related Germanic forms. These names passed through centuries of language change, so they are not simple labels from one untouched tradition. Still, they offer a small daily reminder that old mythic names remain woven into ordinary speech. Let that image settle now. Like snow resting softly on the beam of an old wooden hall. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 77. Runes were an alphabet as well as a source of mythic meaning. Runes were writing characters used in Germanic-speaking regions for centuries. They could mark names, memorials, ownership, short messages, and other practical things. In myth and later tradition, runes also acquired associations with hidden knowledge and power. It is important not to treat every rune inscription as magical. Many are ordinary and direct. Yet the myths show why writing could feel mysterious. A carved sign can outlast the voice that made it. A few marks on stone or wood can carry a name through time. Picture the northern sky growing darker and calmer while the story moves on at its own patient pace. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you, while you do not need to hold on to anything at all. Fact 78. Runestones are among the closest written voices from the Viking Age. Runestones often commemorate people, family relationships, travel, property, or religious change. They do not usually tell complete mythic stories, but they provide important evidence about language, memory, and belief. Some include Christian crosses, while others use traditional imagery or references. The stones remind us that the Viking Age was not a single religious moment. Old and new ideas could exist side by side. A runestone stands in the open air, carrying a message that was meant to be seen by those who passed. It is history made public in stone. Take an easy breath and let the name drift away, leaving only a quiet road beneath the stars. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 79. Archaeological objects can support myths without fully proving their stories. Thor's hammer pendants, picture stones, amulets, burial objects, and carved images give us glimpses of beliefs and symbols that mattered in the Viking Age. But an object does not always come with an explanation. A woman holding a horn might be a Valkyrie, a human host, or something else. A carved scene may suggest a myth, but not name it. Archaeology and literature work best together, each showing something the other cannot. The objects make the myths feel near. The myths give the objects possible meanings. Neither one tells the whole story alone. Imagine a small fire lowering in a distant hall, while someone quietly remembers the next part of the tale. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 80. Blot was a word for offerings and ritual sacrifice. Old Norse sources use the word blot for offerings made to gods or other powers. These rituals could involve food, drink, animals, feasting, social bonds, and hopes for good seasons or protection. The details varied across time and place, and the written evidence is incomplete. Modern retellings can make every ritual seem dramatic, but many acts of religion are ordinary, repeated, and communal. A feast, a shared cup, a spoken name, or a seasonal gathering could carry meaning. Religious life often lived in small actions as much as in grand stories. Let the myth become softer at the edges, as if heard from far away, across water and winter fields. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep. Fact 81. Seeresses called volur appear in myth and saga traditions. A vulva is a female seeress or ritual specialist in Old Norse sources. The poem Voluspa is spoken by such a figure, who tells Odin about creation, fate, Ragnarök, and renewal. Sagas also describe seeresses who travel, perform rites, and answer questions about the future. Archaeological finds in some graves have sometimes been linked with these traditions, though interpretation must remain careful. The vulva represents another kind of authority, not the power of a hammer or a throne, but the power to speak about what has been and what may come. For a moment, leave the gods where they are, and listen only to the wind moving slowly through the trees. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 82. The Voluspa is a vision of both ending and renewal. In Voluspa, a seeress describes the beginning of the world, the deeds of the gods, the calming of Ragnarök, and a world that rises again afterward. This structure matters because Norse myth is not only about destruction. The future contains loss, but also return. Green earth rises from the sea. Some gods survive. Balder comes back. The poem does not promise that everything will remain unchanged. Instead, it imagines a world passing through crisis and becoming different. It is a myth of cycles, memory, and the possibility of another beginning. Picture the world tree standing in the dark, silent and steady, with its roots hidden below the ground. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos. A single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 83. Havamal is a collection of wisdom poetry. linked with Odin. Havamal, often translated as Sayings of the High One, contains verses about hospitality, friendship, caution, reputation, travel, knowledge, and other aspects of life. Not every stanza fits neatly into one single context, and the collection has different layers. Still, it offers a calm contrast to the dramatic myths. It asks how a person should behave in a hall, how to value a friend, and how to understand the risks of speech. Norse literature is not only about monsters and thunder. It also includes practical reflection on how to live among other people. Allow the old story to rest for a moment, with no need to solve every mystery before sleep. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 84. Hospitality was an important theme in Norse wisdom poetry. In Havamal, a traveller arriving at a hall needs fire, food, dry clothes, and a welcome. The poem understands the vulnerability of being far from home in cold weather. It also advises hosts to be generous but sensible. Its hospitality was not simply politeness. In a harsh climate and a travel-based society, it could be a matter of survival and the old verse turns a basic human act into wisdom. Give someone a place by the fire, and remember that one day you may need the same kindness. Imagine a raven crossing a pale moon, carrying a thought you can let go of before it returns. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting out of sight. Fact 85. Kennings were poetic descriptions that made Norse verse richly indirect. A kenning is a compressed poetic phrase that stands in for an ordinary word. A poet might call the sea the whale road or describe gold through a mythic reference. Kennings allowed skaldic poets to make verse dense with memory and allusion. To understand one phrase, a listener might need to know a whole myth. This is one reason Snorri wrote explanations of old stories. The poems were like keys made of language. They unlocked meaning for those who knew how to listen. For everyone else, they could remain beautifully mysterious. Let the road through the myth grow quiet again, wide enough for every name and every silence. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 86. Skaldic poets preserved names, events, and mythic references. Skaldic poetry was a complex form of verse performed and remembered in the Norse world. Poets could praise rulers, commemorate events, or weave mythic images into tightly structured lines. Because the verse used difficult language and strict patterns, it could preserve old material with surprising stability. Yet it still came from human performers with their own audiences and purposes. Skaldic poetry is one of the bridges between history and myth. It records real people and political events, while also drawing on gods, giants, and legendary memory. Picture a covered lamp beside a sleeping hearth, while the old words fade into a warm, gentle hush. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 87. Ragnarök is the Norse mythic future of destruction and change. Ragnarök is often described as the doom of the gods. In the surviving stories, a great crisis approaches. Bonds break. Old enemies are released. The gods and their opponents meet in a final conflict. Modern retellings sometimes treat Ragnarök as a simple apocalypse, but the older poems also include renewal afterward. The word does not mean that the universe ends forever. It describes a terrible turning point after which the world is transformed. Even the gods cannot stand outside time. Rest with the idea that even the largest stories are carried forward by small voices and careful memory. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you, while you do not need to hold on to anything at all. Fact 88. The Fimbulwinter comes before Ragnarök. The Fimbulwinter is a long and severe winter that precedes the final events. The sources describe 3 winters with no summer between them. In a northern environment, winter already carried practical fears: darkness, hunger, cold, and uncertainty. Enlarged into myth, it becomes a sign that ordinary rhythms have failed. The seasons no longer return as they should. The Fimbulwinter is not only weather, it is the feeling that the familiar order of the world has slipped out of place. Let the distant halls of the gods remain far away, quiet beneath the same stars that shine above you. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 89. At Ragnarök, Fenrir breaks free. When the final crisis comes, Fenrir escapes the magical fetter that had held him. The gods had tried to prevent this future long ago, but the future arrives anyway. Fenrir's release is one of several moments when old bindings fail. The myth gives fate a physical shape, a wolf that grows stronger in captivity and waits for the hour when no chain will hold. This is why the story of Fenrir is so uneasy. The attempt to control danger becomes part of the story of danger itself. Imagine water moving softly beneath ice, patient and unseen, while the night becomes deeper. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 90. Jormungand rises from the sea at Ragnarök. The Midgard serpent also emerges during the final events. Thor and Jormungandr meet for the last time. Thor kills the serpent, but the serpent's poison causes Thor to fall after taking only a few steps. Their final struggle completes the tension already present in the fishing story. The god of thunder and the serpent of the sea have been bound together by fate from the beginning. Their end is not a triumph without cost. It is a final balance of strength, poison, and loss. Take a slow breath and allow the story to become only a calm shape beyond the edge of thought. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep. Fact 91. Loki and Heimdall are fated to fight one another. In the accounts of Ragnarök, Loki and Heimdall meet in battle and kill each other. The conflict fits their earlier roles. Heimdall is the watchman of the gods, always alert at the boundary. Loki is the boundary crosser, the figure who unsettles order from within. Their final confrontation brings two very different kinds of power together: vigilance and disruption. The myth does not give either one a lasting victory. At the end of the old order, both fall. Picture a path between dark pines with no footsteps on it now, and no reason to hurry forward. Somewhere in the old northern world, the hearth has been banked for the night, and the story can continue without asking anything from you. Fact 92. Surtur brings fire at the end of the world. Surtur is a fiery being associated with Muspel. At Ragnarök, he comes with flame and is said to burn the world. Fire has been present since the beginning of the cosmos, where heat met frost in Ginnungagap. At the end, it returns as a destructive force. This circular use of fire gives the mythology a strong rhythm. The same element that helped creation begin also helps bring the old world to its close. Fire is not only warm or only terrible. It can be both. Let the old names pass by like clouds, leaving the sky clearer and calmer behind them. There is no need to remember the whole map of the cosmos. A single tree, a quiet well, or a small point of firelight is enough. Fact 93. The world rises again after Ragnarök in Völuspá. After the destruction, Völuspá describes the earth rising again from the sea, green and renewed. This is one of the most important parts of the poem. Norse mythology is often remembered for doom, but it also contains a vision of recovery. The world does not return exactly as before. It becomes a new world, carrying memory of what happened. The image is restful after all. The conflict, land emerging from water, fields growing, and life beginning once more beneath a different sky. Imagine a low murmur of waves against a northern shore, steady enough to carry the next fact gently onward. Imagine the tale being told in a low voice, not to hurry anyone, but simply to keep company with the long winter evening. Fact 94. Some gods survive the final events. In the renewed world, several gods are said to survive or return. The sons of Thor, Mothi and Magni, inherit Mjolnir. Vida and Vali also remain. Balder and his brother Höðr return from the realm of the dead in some accounts. These survivors do not simply restore the previous order. They carry the memory of an older world into a new one. The myth suggests that continuity can remain even after profound change. Not everything is lost when one age ends. For now, leave the question open. The myths have waited centuries and can wait until morning. Let every difficult name become lighter now, like a feather settling on dark water before drifting out of sight. Fact 95. Baldur's return gives the renewed world a note of reconciliation. Baldur's death is one of the saddest moments in the myths. So his return after Ragnarök matters deeply. A figure connected with innocence, beauty, and loss comes back into a world that has passed through destruction. His brother Höðr, who killed him through Loki's deception, also returns in some accounts. This suggests that the renewed world is not only rebuilt, it may also be healed. The old mythology does not give a simple happy ending, but it allows room for peace after grief. Picture a quiet doorway in a longhouse with one thin line of warm light beneath it. The old myths are full of movement, but you can remain still. Let the gods travel on while you rest beside the path. Fact 96. Christianization changed the context in which Norse myths were remembered. Christianity spread through Scandinavia gradually over centuries. In Denmark and elsewhere, old and new practices could exist side by side for a time. Some people wore crosses, others wore Thor's hammers, and some objects seemed designed to serve customers connected with either tradition. The shift was not the same everywhere, and it was not completed in one day. As Christianity became dominant, the old myths survived in altered contexts. Poetry, story, memory, place names, and medieval writing. The stories did not vanish, but the world that first gave them religious meaning changed around them. Allow the story to pause, as though every creature in the mythic world has grown still for a moment. Picture the wind passing over a fjord in the distance, carrying no urgent message, only the soft sound of night. Fact 97. The Eddas were preserved by people living in a Christian literary culture. The manuscripts that preserve the greatest amount of Norse mythology were composed and organized in medieval Christian Iceland. This does not make them false. It means that their authors and scribes approached old material through a new intellectual world. Scholars continue to ask how much of the myths reflects pre-Christian tradition, and how much was shaped by medieval interpretation, literary arrangement, or Christian ideas about history. That uncertainty is one of the central facts of the field. Norse mythology is both old and mediated, inherited and reimagined. Let the stars above Midgard remain where they are, slow and silent, while your thoughts soften. For a few quiet seconds, let the world tree hold the sky for you, while you do not need to hold on to anything at all. Fact 98. Norse myths did not disappear after the Viking Age. Even after conversion to Christianity, names, stories, customs, and images connected with the old gods continued to influence Scandinavian culture. The myths survived in manuscripts, folklore, place names, art, and later literature. They were not preserved unchanged. Every generation that retold them made choices. Yet this continued attention kept Odin, Thor, Freyja, Loki, and the others within cultural memory. Mythology can outlive the religious world in which it first mattered, becoming literature, heritage, inspiration, and a way of asking old questions again. Imagine the sound of a distant hammer fading until only the calm of the night is left. Imagine a faraway hall where the cups are set down, the voices grow softer, and the fire turns to a low red glow. Fact 99. Modern Asa-true and related traditions are living religions for some people. Today, some people practice modern forms of Norse paganism, often called Asa-true or heathenry. These traditions are modern reconstructions and revivals, not unchanged copies of Viking Age religion. Different groups have different beliefs and practices, and they deserve to be understood respectfully, as living communities rather than as costumes from the past. Their existence also reminds us that mythology is not only something stored in a museum or book. For some people, old names and stories still carry spiritual meaning in the present. Rest beside this thought for a moment, like a traveler resting beside a fire before continuing at dawn. Let the northern stars become simple points of light, with no fate to explain and no road to follow. Fact 100. Norse mythology remains powerful because it accepts uncertainty and change. The old stories do not promise that strength will solve every problem. The gods can be wise and still fail. They can be brave and still lose what they love. They know that Ragnarök is coming, yet they continue to act. The world tree stands even while something gnaws at its roots. This mixture of beauty and fragility gives Norse mythology its lasting depth. It is a mythology of great halls and thunder, but also of grief, memory, endurance, and the quiet hope that a new green world may rise after winter. Let the old world grow quiet in your mind, held gently between frost, fire, and sleep. The story can remain unfinished in your mind. It will still be there, waiting peacefully beyond the edge of sleep now. The old hall is growing quiet. The ravens have folded their wings. The hammer has become still. The great tree stands dark against a sky full of slow-moving stars. Somewhere beyond the mountains, a story is being remembered by a voice we can no longer hear. Norse mythology was never only about battle or thunder. It was also about weather, hospitality, memory, kinship, cleverness, grief, work, fate, and the changing of seasons. Its surviving stories are fragments from a larger world, carried to us across many centuries. By poets, scribes, objects, place names, and imagination. You do not need to follow the paths of the gods any farther tonight. Let Asgard remain distant. Let the frost giants keep their mountains. Let the sea serpent sleep beneath the waves. Thank you for spending this time with history to fall asleep. May your thoughts become calm, your breathing remain slow, and your sleep arrive gently. Good night.